Welcome to the second video on how to build brands. So in the previous video, I brought the point that the custodians of brands are shifting, and it's including the customers as well. In this video, I'm going to talk about the brand essence document, which is the most widely used document across brands across the world in various forms and various names, but it broadly includes this. So to build brands, we first need to establish and align on and articulate what the brand is and who the brand is in simple terms, which is what we reflect across every communication and every touch point, every way in which the brand interacts with the consumer, be it the product, the packaging, and the messaging. So this video is dedicated to that articulation phase. How do you put on a piece of paper in a ready reference form template what the brand is all about? For those of you who this is a little redundant, stay with me because I have put a new point of view in this conversation as well. So broadly, in any brand essence document, there'd be 5 broad parts. The first part would be the origin story of the company itself. However old the company is or however new the company is, this section encapsulates an essence of the origin story, the founding principles or the founding vision behind the setting up of this company, because that's the root of the root, and from here we note down what the root strengths therefore are of this company and any challenges or any weaknesses which have come because of. For example, to talk about the weaknesses, it's good to mention that right here in this document to know that is something we deal with. Axe deodorants, for example, for a long time we all know what the narrative is in Axe deodorants. It was always about, so using that perfume, ordinary men using that deo and attracting women, and as the zeitgeist, the thinking of the times shifted, it became a little inappropriate, that whole imagery in Axe, and so that is mentioned in their brand essence document, that this is a challenge, like that is something that they have to constantly address in their communication. So this is the first section, which is the origin story. Then comes the competition report, is what I'm calling it. In this section, in that same document, we make a quick reference, or we make a quick this thing of the direct competition. So if you are Coke, then your direct competition is Pepsi. In India, Campa-Cola today, perhaps, but fair. So what I mean is the direct competition would be for an aerated drink is other aerated drinks, right? But so that's one part. In the competition, we also mentioned indirect competition, which basically means anything that the customer or potential buyer considers when it is a likely situation for our brand product to be bought. So when you look at it that way, then Coca-Cola's competition also becomes water, also becomes Nimbu Pani, that is lemon juice, lemonade. So in this competition report, it's just a mention of who our direct competition is and who our overarching threat is. So that comes in the competition report. The third one becomes about who we serve, which means about our target audience. So the core audience that this brand or product aims to serve is what we mention in this section. So in that there's a small TG description, just to know their demographics, psychographics broadly. We talk about what we call a consumer insight, but I would call it a relevant consumer tension point, because an insight can be anything, that a rainbow makes people smile, but there is no tension point in it, because that insight more than the insight, what's important is the tension point, because we can say people love viewing rainbows, but they live in buildings with no view to the sky. That becomes a complete insight, because you see a tension point. They like to see rainbows, but they live in places which doesn't allow them a chance to catch a rainbow. So then it becomes, instead of calling it insight, I would rather call it a relevant tension point, because only when we identify that is when we can come to the next section, which is how we serve. So given this is the TG and this is the tension point that we have identified, how we resolve it. So in this part, to talk about how we resolve it, we also talk about our discriminator. That is what makes us different from any other brand, product or service which is providing the same solution. So here the discriminator could be in terms of the product itself, in terms of the ingredients or the making or the superiority of the product, but in more cases than not, this doesn't exist. So the differentiator can be therefore and needs to be in the intent story. That is, what is the intent behind what we do? This is the part where a lot of brand strategists and brand marketers miss out, because they try to find loopholes to establish some sort of product superiority. But today, customers can point it out. If you are making things up and if you're being gimmicky, they can catch you like that. And that is why we need to avoid using our creative juices to identify how we are discriminated. That means how we are differentiated when we are not. Instead of that, we can create a unique intent story that only we can claim and serve our audience in. So that point being that between the product and or the intent story, we create that differentiator to solve the tension point that is pointed out in the previous section. So if it's about not being able to see rainbows, it could be that we are a company that provides weekend getaways to places at this price, or that we provide periscopic windows. I'm just creating this random things. It's totally random what I created, just to explain that what about, or we believe that you should be able to see the rainbow every week. So or get a view of the sky more often in life, and therefore that is our intent story. And then whatever product we have, be it a travel thing or be it a books on where to travel, these things become the product or the brand that way. But it could be via the intent story or the vision story or the product itself. So that comes to how we serve, and this leads to establishing in few pithy lines what the value system of the brand is. So that you have to put down. It could be truth, integrity, or no person should miss out on lifestyle with a view of the sky, or something of that sort, the value system. And finally, the brand essence. Rainbows are for everyone, or enabling rainbow sites. Like I said, this was a very random example thought of on the spur of the moment. But now, having said this, you Google it. I don't want to waste my course time on this and your time on this. There's tons of Google documents, and if you Google brand key, brand essence, a lot of brands, they could be aged, not the latest, but you will find the brand keys of, they could be old, but just to refer to the document, the ones for Dove, I think Axe, at least are definitely there on easily available on Google. They're not, like I said, they may not be the latest, they may be dated, but it gives you an idea of how this thing, the brand essence document looks. Now the new point. So when I spoke, so this is a traditional way that people take it. Now what I want to bring onto the table with this discussion I'm trying to start on a new approach to brand strategy via my book and via this course, is that when we talk about who we serve, given the changed landscape and given the changed way of the new world, given that we live in the digital age where everybody is communicating with each other and connected with each other all the time, and everybody is part of some or the other community, be it via WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, but everybody is an activist in their own right. Even if it is activism doesn't have to be just about saving the planet or educating the woman, educating girls. Activism in their own right It could be an activism for work-life balance. It could be activism for the right to chill. I'm just picking things which are trivial. Activism to be for men to wear makeup if they like. Heterosexual men to wear makeup. But everybody today is an activist in their own right, and which makes them a part of a community. So when we talk about who we serve, and when we talk about the TG description and a relevant tension point, we should include a community insight. That is, which communities is our consumer likely to be part of? Is it bike riding communities? Is it art communities, dance, gardening, reading, or tech writing, whatever the communities that they are part of? We need to have an insight on that as well, and have an insight on how they behave within their communities, or what motivates them as a community. So this is the new aspect that needs to be introduced into the strategic planning approach and in the articulation of the brand essence document, because as we move forward, it is about community connection also. So and then the rest of it leads further. So that's the point on the brand essence document. You can read a lot more on it. It's called brand key, brand love key, brand wheel. So these are the keywords to use and search for it to know more. Another key thing that is important in articulating the brand is brand architecture. Now, I have found that a lot of people, even business owners and brand marketers, use brand architecture as a term very loosely. I recently came across a designer friend of mine who received a brief from a client wanting a visual identity as well as a brand architecture, which made this designer friend get in touch with me, because he knows that I'm a brand strategist, saying that the client is looking for brand architecture. But reading the brief, I understood that I think what the client really meant was a visual identity of how all the related companies will also look. But that's not a brand architecture. That's a visual identity, and how the visual identity will extend across the various entities that the company entails. A brand architecture, a lot of you know this, so pardon the redundancy, but a brand architecture is a structure of all the sub-brands, products and services that a company offers, and how they relate to each other. This is necessary to establish and know and articulate and align on, especially in the context of brand building, because it is necessary to know how the brands are serving or pulling down each other, the sub-brands. So a little theory on this again. Brand architecture is a subject which is widely available on the internet for you to read quickly. Within about 10-15 minutes you'll get the whole grasp of it. I will just tell you broadly that there are 3 kinds and now a 4th kind as well. The first kind is called a branded house, which means the example commonly you'll find is, say, FedEx. That is, it's one brand and all the sub-brands are also branded by the same brand. Like FedEx, all the sub companies of FedEx. Also, the other option for branded house is when they have sub brands. When they have, because it can be confusing, but it's actually very simple. So when they have sub brands, okay, so something that is also a branded house, because so a branded house is used when the larger product line is in the same field. So FedEx is to do with courier and logistics, so everything, all the FedEx sub brands which are a branded house, so FedEx this, all of it caters to that same larger product or service or discipline. Sub brands allows you to have different products and services as well by the same original brand, the umbrella brand. So that's the sub brand. So this comes under branded house. The next one is called endorsed brands, where each brand is it's just endorsed, so it's by so and so, by the mother brand, something by this. So it allows us to create a separate identity for each entity, but you know that it is upfront that it is by this mother brand. So they are endorsed by that mother brand, but they are. And then finally, there is house of brands. So a company like Hindustan Unilever or P&G, etc., are house of brands. They have, or WPP, they are a house of brands because they have a lot of companies working in it which are completely independent of each other. It's on the paper that they are owned by this company, but as far as the consumer is concerned, unless you look at the label, you probably wouldn't know that they are by the same big brand. So those are called house of brands. Now when we have our own business and we have to decide which brand architecture should we adopt, we have to think about why, the pros and cons of each of these systems, a branded house, an endorsed brand system, or a house of brands, the pros and cons of each, and then decide which works best for us. A branded house helps when the mother brand has a very good equity, like Virgin Airlines. So if that original brand has a very good equity, then it is contributing to the equity of each of those sub brands. So that is the pro. The negative side, the con of a branded house, is that the reputations of each of these entities affect each other. So suppose one company goes through a crisis, it will impact the reputations of all the other companies. So that is something that we need to think about and decide on. An endorsed brand is the same thing, where the mother brand, if the mother brand has a very good reputation connection, like Bajaj, it helps, like Tata, it helps to have that endorsement. So Tata is a brand which has a lot of endorsed brands. Tata, Titan Eye Plus, Tanishq, Taneira, these, everybody knows it's a Tata company. So it is an endorsed brand because of the quality that Tata brings with it as a brand. And then the house of brands, the biggest advantage of house of brands is that you can have conflicting businesses also within the same. So for example, under HUL there is Lifebuoy, there are multiple soaps. Of course there are different soaps, but there are beauty soaps, there's Lux and there is Dove and there is Hamam and there is Hamam I think is, yeah, HUL, and I'm not very sure, but Lifebuoy. Right. So that's the thing of the house of brands. Finally, there is the fourth kind, is called the hybrid model, where you could work out a system where you have both. You have some of your brands which are working like a branded house with sub brands. You could have some working independently. So there are no hard and fast rules about what to. We live in the age of fluidity, as is the very first chapter in my book. Fluidity in every aspect of life. You have to read my book to know that chapter, but point is that yes, so even here we have the option of flexibility. So a flexible hybrid model is permissible. There's no one, it's not a law, but what you select depends on all these factors and more. It's not an easy decision to make. The theory of it is partially easy. As you can see, I fumbled a few times, but executing it and really making that decision for your business is something that is a call that needs to be taken collectively and cannot be hurried up. It takes months, at least 6 months, to decide and it has to be an informed, deliberate call, because your brand in forever after this relies on this. So there are things you can speed up and there are things you ideally should not. While all this is happening, once the brand essence is set, once the brand architecture is set, we automatically arrive with the help of designers and creative people on what colors, what fonts will bring this out the best. And that is the basis on which the logo and the look and feel, the tonality, the visual identity is created and the sub brands are created. So before getting into the visual identity, it is imperative. People don't work in this way, but it actually, to build great brands, it is imperative to first have the brand essence document in place, which takes months, and then also have the brand architecture in place. If it's a new company and you have only one product, then nothing like it. But have the brand architecture in place, the brand essence and then involve creative people. The creative people can be involved in this process as well of deciding the brand essence and brand architecture, because it orients their understanding of the brand, because they have to visually depict it. But they can come in at this stage after the documents are ready and brief them based on this. Then it will save people like my designer friend who had to call me and ask me in a confused way, my client is asking for a brand architecture. So I hope I have made that clear, that the fundamental building blocks of, and did I mention, so when the designer with the brand visual identity also helps to create the brand playbook and brand guidelines, which then becomes a ready reckoner document for any communication that ever comes out. You're supposed to refer to this to get the right Pantone shades, to get the right logo, how it should appear in various formats and templates and platforms. And what, like I used to work on Garnier, and one of the things was they always should have greenery, at least at that time, about 10 years ago when I worked on them. Whatever it is, they have, whatever the communication, visual or print, it should always have some plant, at least, like it should have. So these kind of guidelines, because when you decide, when you know clearly what your brand wants to cue, you will have these things in place. So now you have all these documents set in the how to build brands. You set the brand essence document, it's not set in stone, of course it can keep, but you have something ready, a brand essence document, the brand architecture, the brand guidelines, the brand playbook, the visual identity. And then we move on to the next stage of ongoing brand strategy being built, because great brands like, do I have it here? No. But the Coca-Cola sketch that I drew, Coca-Cola bottle sketch, great brands like that are built over time. And once these things that I covered in this video are set, you then go on to handle ongoing strategic challenges and ongoing business problems and goals, both long and short term, using strategy, which I will cover in the upcoming videos.